Now, obviously, like if they're at 0, then you're attacking really well. So I feel like we've just seen Whitebeard like be able to survive against yellow for a long time, you know?
Yeah, so definitely both of these decks have an incredible amount of survivability, and we'll get to see. Normally, Karakuri, the way that they at least they build their decks, it doesn't have these sort of optional effects like the Soul Focus. That may be one of the more important cards in the matchup in terms of if it becomes dead or if it's triggered early in the game, and if it's triggered early enough to have maximum value, right? So that's definitely going to be one key factor. Another key factor is, can the yellow deck survive through multiple 9 drops, and in doing so, exhaust Whitebeard's resources like that, like we saw in the
Mhm.
previous game. So a lot of
Yep.
questions to be answered here. Taking an 8 in the early game,
Mhm.
so definitely seems to not mind going low on life earlier and going
Mhm.
ahead and dealing a 6 and playing a vanilla. So this vanilla is actually going to be incredibly effective because yellow traditionally does not have hard removal for this mid-rangey type of card, and he's not on 8 Dawn to be able to do that
Yeah.
character. So this Minotaur is definitely just sticking in play.
The Minotaur. Yeah, traditionally, like you're just gonna have to play a body to contest with it, and not necessarily like, um, and not remove it, right? So you're probably just gonna have to end up playing one of your 4 Dawn bodies just to try to attack it.
Yeah, so definitely a little bit of a back and forth. I do believe that the yellow player does not mind going down to 2 or even 1 life, especially considering the fact that he can go ahead and start activating his leader's effect. Attacking for 8 and then rearranging his life might be one of the main game plans going into it here. And leaving up, oh, and he plays the vanilla. And this vanilla, actually being a 6K base, will match the Atmos on the other side. So definitely
Yeah.
a pretty cool tech to have here.
I'm a big fan of Opera, actually. I actually really like this card for that exact reason. It basically just, like, if 4/6 vanillas are good in red, then they're also good in yellow because you can attack the 4/6s very well while also just dealing with, um, you know, uh, other matchups as well where they just get really big really quick.
Yeah, these base 6K attacking cards are decent in the Whitebeard matchup, specifically because he's also 6K base, but as well as going into something like Law, where you need to attack for 6K into those 5-drop Laws. So definitely multi
Yeah.
matchup versatility from these vanillas. And here comes another vanilla. And this vanilla is nothing to
Mm.
scoff at. This is actually an insanely large AK
Yeah,
Thatch.
this
And
is this
this
is
curve
big
out is a
body.
little savage. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much what Whitebeard wants, right? You go second, and then you just slam big body after big body. Linlin here really going to struggle. I mean, going to 7 Dawn, you could just play 7 cost Linlin in order to compete with the Thatch. But I mean, your leader ability also is live here. You can pick up a life and then put a life back down. So you have options. I think if we can't kill the Thatch, we definitely have to kill the Atmos at the very least here.
Yeah, so Thatch probably going to stick through the turn cycle and even get a healthy swing
Mhm.
in. Dealing with the Atmos would be quite wonderful on this turn. However, it might require too much Dawn investment. So I do want to see, this is the last turn that those optional gain a life or burn a damage cards are active. So he probably wants to resolve one of those. Ideally, like you mentioned, the 7-drop. So if you can 7-drop on this turn, match AK for AK with that Thatch, and also force the opponent to heal him for 1, it could be a very decent turn.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I do think. I mean, if we're not gonna like slam a big body just to compete, I would like to see the Big Mom use her leader ability this turn because that would allow you to stack your life in a way that gives you an advantageous trigger off the top. And here we're going 9 into Atmos. Mhm.
So very much valuing the fact that this, if he actually puts a soul focus here, it's quite
Mhm.
beneficial because it will be able to trigger going into the Whitebeard's last turn with a life, as well as matching this Thatch. And yeah, I just want him to put something proactive here. It could also be a Shirahoshi, and that would set up for an 8-drop on the following turn. Healing her, drawing
Mhm.
extra cards. We've seen that combo loop be very effective up to this point. So has certainly a couple of options available to him.
Yeah. I mean, there's like no shortage of triggers that would be very advantageous here. It's just up to him to see which one he wants to put down. Swinging 9K into this six, I mean, it would require two 2Ks to get out. As Whitebeard, you think? I think. Okay, he's choosing not to. I was going to say, do you value the 2Ks in your hand more than the body on the field, considering you're going to be going down to 0 life? And I guess the answer was no.
So this is an indication to me, at least, face value on the field, that he has a one or even two copies of the 9 drop. He doesn't
Mm,
want to overcommit defenses on his Atmos because he doesn't feel that he actually has to finish the game in the following few turns.
hmm
And he might actually read that there's a soul focus, so he might actually burn himself to 0. And if he does that, then the 9 drop would have been a little less efficient. So this
hmm
is a little bit awkward though, because now he's almost fully tapped out, and at the same time is going to go down to 0 life. So it's very dangerous.
Yeah, and ace is more or less the perfect card here. All right. We can block one and then take the other. It's pretty difficult to get out of both of these attacks. But I mean, this would be the one you counter out of, right? Because it's slightly smaller.
So
I
here
Yeah.
we want to use the brulee to its maximum efficiency because it might
hmm
die at any moment to something like a pop a 3K effect or the 9 drop itself. So
Yep.
definitely want to use it to while we still can. We also know what the top, or at least the yellow player knows what the top of his life is. So
Yeah.
maybe taking it doesn't sound too terrible. He's actually going to opt to block the first one, like you mentioned. If you're going to block any of them, you block this one, and then stop the next attack. And now, actually, you just consider,
14 face, baby. 14.
yeah,
No,
just
right? So I'm trying to think. So radical being, I mean, there's no way 14's enough, right? But what can you really play here to put yourself in a better position? You could play Katakuri, which could put back the Thatch. That might be pretty reasonable. We'll put the Thatch in the life, but then if your opponent plays a 9 drop on the following turn, he'll basically have that life again. So it's really rough. I mean, there's not really a good body you can establish here. Playing the 7 drop doesn't do anything because then your opponent won't get. Your opponent will just choose to burn themselves, which does nothing because they don't have any life. So it's tough.
exactly. Yeah, so definitely one thing that could resolve would be 8 dropping one of these two bombs into the white beard player's life, and then forcing a soul focus right after. So that would turn on your soul focus again, and at the same time get rid of one of these big bombs. So that's another consideration. If he just so happens to have the 8 drop, I think one Dawn plus tapping everything does indicate that he has that.
Yep.
So
So Katakuri, I believe you want to select a Thatch here. You really don't want to give your opponent the ace back.
exactly. Do agree with that. Just get rid of the bigger threat on the field at the moment, and then not give him the option to play another rush creature, and then see what he does. And then something tells me we're going to go ahead and take this life because we know what the top of our life is.
Mm-hmm.
And if he set it up properly, this should be a backbreaking trigger. So he's been holding on to it for quite a long time. He defended the previous turn just to have this life trigger at this exact moment. So I wonder if he actually next leveled it.
Yeah. So if your opponent, okay, getting out of that, there we go. We're going to 8 there. We're just going to slam a 9 drop here. There we go. And now are we going to get out of 8? I mean, it's pretty tough. No, we're going to take it. We know what it is. And choosing no trigger. So he just kind of expected not to trigger anything there. Maybe he didn't have anything good.
That is incredibly odd to see that he would get to choose out of a card. At that point in time, he had at least 6 or 7 cards in hand, and he wasn't able to stack a viable trigger on top. So it seems a little awkward from that perspective. Okay,
Oh,
being
there we
able to
go.
get maximum value out of the 10 drop, and it's actually pretty cool because he went ahead and set up a situation where the 9 drop had to come down if the whitebeard player wanted to feel safe for the turn, and then that allowed his 10 drop to actually get maximum value. So really had to play from the Lim player. It was actually ended up quite well. The only thing that was a little awkward is no trigger from the life, but if he planned it that way, then it should be fine.
Yeah. Oh man, so we probably want to attack here just to get a card out of the hand, but then this leaves our Katakuri very vulnerable on the crackback. I think we
And
could see another ace would be like insane, but even an Otama would put a lot of pressure on this card here.
yeah, so using the 8K attack in order to swing a life, I do not believe it gets enough value to justify putting it sideways because now
Mhm.
one of these two bombs on the Whitebeard side can easily deal with it. On the other hand, something beneficial was that a 2K was discarded just for an 8 on 8, so
Yeah,
that could indicate that the Whitebeard player actually has a lot of 2Ks in hand and he's a little oversaturated. Not necessarily a bad problem to have, but it might also
yeah.
mean that he doesn't have, that many viable bombs left. So
Yeah, I know White Bear is almost all 2Ks, right? Like your 1K in hand is your Marco blocker, and you just want to play that. So here we go. We're gonna grab Ezo, search the top five. Speaking of Marco blocker, this would be a great turn to play one. So I think we're gonna see we might see like try to go after this Katakuri or go after life, and then establish a Marco blocker would feel pretty good, right?
yeah, so losing the Karakuri here is going to be incredibly detrimental. It's just making sure that he has optimal attacks into it. Just going 8 with the ace, for example, would be a decent attack, forcing out a 1K or a 2K.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, if it gets defended, just straight up destroying it with the 10K Whitebeard would be fine. But I don't think there's any wrong options here as long as all the cards turn sideways this turn. And I just want to see maybe even another Newgate come down.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna go 7 at life. This one actually, I mean, it feels kind of if you don't take it, then your Katakuri is pretty much dead. So
So
because getting rid of 2 cards here guarantees your Katakuri to die. But if you do take it, you're pretty much going down to 1 life for this turn.
yeah, so let's see if the Whitebeard player actually wants to hedge his bet a little bit and then attack at life first, force down 1 life, see if there was any trigger there that he wanted to deal with after, and then if not, then he actually goes for the Karakuri.
Wow.
It doesn't seem to be the case. He's actually just attacking face.
Mm.
And
It's go time. It is go time, and we're not hitting any triggers. Oh my goodness, we have
yes.
not hit. Have we hit any triggers off the life that we this entire game? No, I don't think so.
No, I think it's been blank life the entire game. Even the life that he stacked was blank as
Mhm.
well, so it's been pretty suboptimal so far. Unfortunately, he's going to go down to 0 life on this turn, presumably when this 10K attacks. It just depends if the Whitebeard actually wants to take maybe equip 2 Dawn to it. Not just 1 Dawn and then
We're gonna
swing.
go for 11. Taking this life means Thunderbolt is offline, which means you won't have a great way to deal with the Marco blocker that he's gonna play.
Yeah, that is
And the
correct.
Marco, yeah, that Marco is just putting in a ton of work. We do luckily have Katakuri as a really good attacker, followed by Big Mom, but our opponent just has so many cards in hand. Not to mention 1-up for Radical Beam. I want to know. I mean, the yellow player also just has a ton of cards in hand as well. So it makes me wonder, like what he had as an option.
Makes it interesting to see if he was actually taking the earlier swings because he wanted to untap with a Karakuri, like you mentioned. But
Mm-hmm.
now it kind of came back to bite him a little bit because he couldn't out combo an 11 and Thunderbolt is no longer an out. So,
Yeah. So what do we think we can swing? So if I think at this point we lose, right? So we put our opponent on the gotta have it, which is I'm trying to think. We could go 16 on the Big Mom and 12 on the Katakuri. That's not enough. I don't know. We could go 14 and 16. 14 and 16 sounds pretty good, I think. 14 and 16. They block one. Your opponent only has to discard, I think, 4 cards to combo out of 14. Man, Whitebeard is just so crazy. It's so hard. When they're in this position, it's like, man, there's like no number that sounds good. Even like 20K is like, that doesn't even really sound all that good sometimes.
yeah, so snap picking that blocker Marco for this exact reason. Now the yellow player has difficulty splitting his attacks in a way that makes it favorable to try to go for an all in. So it was a
Mm-hmm.
great play to pick up that Marco, and we can see the power level of that card shining here.
Hmm.
And I mean, realistically, trying to go for something like swing for, I don't know, 10 maybe with the Karakuri, it just seems so awkward.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm trying to think
Really,
about.
really, the key was if this was going to be a final turn type of situation, leaving yourself with that Thunderbolt out available would have been quite important.
Yeah, it's tough though. So like, if you out counter the ace, then you have two less cards in hand, and he probably just kills your Katakuri, probably, right? So
There's a
it's
possibility that maybe he could have forced out the opponent to try to go for face, and then once the
mhm.
11 came through, he tries to out combo the 11. That could
Yeah.
have also been a possibility. That is a little bit more far fetched, seeing as that would have cost him his whole hand, but it could have
Mhm.
been a line of play. Either way, he probably doesn't have
Mhm.
Thunderbolt in the situation anyway. So let's just see what else is available to him.
Yeah. I don't know. Swinging for 10 just feels kind of like, ugh, just doesn't feel good enough. It's only two cards. Our opponent has like 8 cards in hand. So getting 2 cards out just doesn't feel very strong.
So you go 10, force out Radical Beam plus 1 card. That taps the opponent down and leaves him only with essentially 2k worth of power, and then you just split the difference between two attacks. That's probably not going to be good enough for it. So
Yeah, I feel like no matter, it's first of all, it is possible. Like he could just not have it. He could be. What is the likelihood of him having it is extremely high, but we're guaranteed to lose. There's no way we can beat out a Whitebeard and an ace and everything else, right? So here we're gonna go 12, and this is a block. Oh, interesting. So yeah, we just go what 18, right?
so this was actually quite a quick block from the side of the Whitebeard player, and
Yeah.
I would have wanted him to think about it a little bit more because there can be a much larger combination of numbers here.
Mm, that's pretty scary. So we block, and then
And
are we
he's
gonna
also
discard?
considering discarding.
Yeah. Okay.
Discarding anything that has any sort of counter power does not feel reasonable to me, unless he
I think
just
he.
feels like he had 30k counter in hand and none of this matters.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah, I think he can just. So just to say, Chris Sock, he's a very well-known player. He's a very good player. I think he knows he can just get out of 18. So he's just like, and yeah, see, look, he got rid of a counter power there. Like, there's no way he just loses to this swing for 18, right? I mean, there's no way you lose to that. Do you
Yes.
swing your leader into Marco first, just to try to get one more card out of his hand?
So you could go attach one Don, swing for 6, force out a 2k, and then go for the all in. I think that would be a little more optimal.
Here we go. So we have 10. Oh my God, he has a book in hand. 12. He definitely gets out. 14. Oh, this is disgusting.
Oh,
16. 18. One more.
He's just doing a little bit of movie magic here.
Oh, 20. Oh, dude, Whitebeard is so gross. Oh, that's disgusting. We're gonna scoop it up. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, oh my God, he had 2 more 2Ks. What? That's crazy. Yeah, so that block there was smart. It's just basically like, oh, he had Thunderbolt in hand. Look at his hand. No counter power whatsoever. That's tough. Yeah, he really needed that Thunderbolt because had he been able to swing 12 direct to face, that would have been game. So really needing Thunderbolt there. I think Chris played it very well, though. Very smart. He recognized that he's like, I'm not going to die to 18K, so I'll just do whatever, right? I mean, that was kind of crazy. Man, Whitebeard's gross.
Yeah, a good game all around. Definitely considering now if he had given the Whitebeard player the ability to mess up and then basically be like counter out of either the ace or the leader swing and then force the 10k to if the 10k goes face instead of the Karakuri, then maybe he had an out. But either way,
he just had no count. He had no counter power in his hand. He really couldn't get out of anything. But that was tough. So I guess we'll hit a BRB right quick. There's still like plenty of time left in the round. That was a quick game. So we will jump to another table. Just stay put for a few seconds.
proplaygames is back on the road, and we are ecstatic to hit the convention scene once again.
All right, and we have a law mirror. This is about to be pretty freaky, I think. So trying to jump in, we see a Basil Hawkins on one player's board, and I mean, that seems like it's going to be really good in the mirror match. What do you think, Free?
Yeah, so that Basil Hawkins is definitely going to break open the mirror in terms of number of attacks that go on these law blockers. So the law blocker, obviously the most important card on both sides, generating the most amount of attacks and also card advantage. But Basil Hawkins being able to attack down a few times per turn on some of these cards, it's going to be quite instrumental. And here we go. So the first 8 is most likely going on this tapped law, and you're just going to untap after for free. So
yeah, actually, it looks like both players are at 0 life here. So I mean, we're getting down to the nitty gritty. The player whose turn it is now has a ton of initiative, having multiple attacking bodies. Looks like there are blockers galore on both sides. So, but yeah, Basil Hawkins definitely going to come in really nice here. So yeah, we'll see.
he's going in for 8 once more, and then this one gets choppered. And then I would assume, depending on the number of cards in hand, just attacks for 7 are pretty optimal here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, but attacks for 7 are good. Looks like the I'm gonna say the law player. I'm kidding. Which law player? And he's just scooping. There you go. We're scooping it. Okay, so
there's nothing there. Yeah, so
all right. So Basil,
it was interesting to see that Basil Hawkins, because we could see that the law player that has the Basil Hawkins actually had like 10 cards in hand. So it's very likely that he was getting a lot of value from that card over the course of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a pretty cool card to see in the mirror match.
All right, let's just jump back into table 8. Let's do it.
Cool.
All right. Are we live, Steven? Perfect.
Yeah, so this one here, this is a matchup that we've seen actually in the top table. So this seems to be a recurring pattern. So a Karakuri player just trying to stall out the matchup against Whitebeard. And that strategy has worked before, but this one, it's looking a little dicey with the Thatch into the Whitebeard. It looked previously in this game, and now having just a decent board state. But can he survive? He only has 2 cards left in his hand.
Yeah, I feel like this is deja vu. This exact oh my god, this is super deja vu. This exact
board was,
this exact Katakuri player did the same thing the last time we hopped into a game. So here we have just a crazy board. I mean, Whitebeard is going to put on a ton of aggression. Katakuri might be able to squeak it out some defense, but this is definitely going to be one of the last turns of the game. Whitebeard with 2 cards in hand, just really not going to be doing too much, but double blocker and a bunch of bodies is going to be a lot of aggression.
Yeah, so he has effectively 5-6 attackers in play, and the Karakuri player only has 3 lives. So there's some amount of rationale for going with lethal this turn. However, there's a lot of counterpower presumably to get through.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what the Whitebeard player needs to do here is play Moby Dick. That would definitely throw the game in his favor.
That would be quite good here.
That'd be crazy.
I do believe that swinging for identifying that it's the last turn of the game and then swinging with a few Marcos. Alternatively, if he believes that he can survive these 2 Karakuri swings with the 2 Marco blockers on his field, he would go something with leaving Dawn open and then just chip damaging this turn. Either way, he decides to go with 10k first, and this 10k is probably going to merit just taking, as is basically the biggest card in play. I don't see why you wouldn't just take this one.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's the biggest one in play. The other ones need a lot of Dawn equipped to them to reach this, and starting with Shirahoshi doesn't seem like a bad idea because it can fix our hand if we have any dead counter cards in our hand. So that is a good point. I feel like it's pretty far. I feel like neither of these players are in the position they want to be in.
Yeah, it's a little awkward of a situation.
So it's definitely something to consider,
It might be
And we're
foreign
gonna.
territory for both these players. It might not be
Oh,
as
he
much
he
muscle memory as possible. And
he
even though
attacked the
we're not,
Katakuri. There we go. So yeah, attacking Katakuri. Basically, the Katakuri just blocked 2 attacks there. I mean, you're not mad at that at all.
yeah, so interesting how this player actually focused on board. And now that one Karakuri fell, it's actually going to be a lot easier to survive on the way back with 2 Marcos. Every time that we see in this matchup, the yellow player would have been able to get through 1 Marco with Thunderbolt on the final turn of the game. In
Yeah.
this case, there's actually 2, so now that play is no longer available.
Definitely, unless the top life is Thunderbolt and he has a Thunderbolt in hand, that is a possibility.
That is quite crazy. And actually, that sort of possibility is even higher with something like Lim Lim as the leader. But as it stands, Karakuri, I mean, because if it happened randomly, that would be fantastic. But
I think we're gonna see an ace. I wonder what the Whitebeard player is leaving up like all of his Dawn, so it can't be for another 9 drop. So the most likely option I think would be ace. I think we're gonna see an ace here.
yeah, so he definitely decided that the game is not ending this turn because he went ahead and tried to destroy the Karakuri instead of trying to go for lethal. Very wise choice considering he has 2 Marcos in place. So just, I would say if the only win con for the yellow player is taking this live and hoping it's something like a Thunderbolt, maybe even attacking is not super wise. But again, it just depends on how much priority he wants to give to trying to close the game out.
Yeah, just not using any Dawn for any of those attacks. I mean, I felt like it might have been able. You probably could have placed some of the attacks better. Like if you put 2 Dawn on Whitebeard, it would have killed the Katakuri on the first swing and taken out one of these 1 drops for whatever reason. Not that that really matters, but
maybe taking out the mermaid after it's summoned from life in order to cut off another 8 drop play. That could have also been a consideration. And I just feel like going for a game was also very possible on that turn as well. Either way, with the way that the Whitebeard player played it, he is very safe behind these 2 blockers, and I don't feel he's necessarily losing any kind of pressure on his board. And we can see that attacking
1 drop.
1 drop here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, honestly, right? This is like the only way you can win is if these 1 drops deal a damage. All right. If your opponent doesn't have a card to counter, it looks like he has a big hand. For some reason, I thought he only had 2 cards in hand. So
he has 4 or 3 at the beginning. Now I think he only has 1 left, and here's a block here. No revival, just keeping the last card safe in hand.
Block and no revive, and then we're gonna go 5. Doesn't do anything.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's fine.
That's fine.
Leaving 2 up for a sovereignty. Yeah, see, you could have killed one of those 1 drops and kept a card in hand, right? I didn't expect them to do much, but it looks like they did.
Yeah, so not gonna be enough going into the end of this game. The resources are just not there for the yellow player to be able to close it out, and this thatch is going to take.
That's going to 10 against the Katakuri. So
many cards from hand. These swings are just so large.
They're huge. We do have 2 Dawn up to represent a sovereignty. Oh, it looks like, was he going face there? He looks like, I didn't quite see.
Yeah, it's probably going face here. I mean, this is definitely just 7 to here, and we.
All right, and that's game. Yeah.
Take the last card, and then 1 card can't defend 10, and that'll be.
All right. Well, that was Whitebeard